Today is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022 at 6 p.m. This is the Selectmen's meeting. Please join me for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Mr. Weeks, do you mind reading this week's announcements?
My pleasure. The town election nomination papers are available in the town clerk's office. We are looking for citizens at large to become members of the newly revitalized bylaw review committee. Volunteer applications may be found on the town website, www.hanson-ma.gov, or by calling the selectman's office at 781-293-2131. Volunteers are also needed on the following committees: the Bylaw Review Committee, Capital Improvement Committee, Conservation Commission, Cultural Council, Disabilities, Facebook Upkeep Committee, Highway Building Committee, Historical Commission, Memorial Day Patriotic Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, Nathaniel Thomas Mill Committee, Parks and Fields Committee, and Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. We have upcoming meetings: Board of Selectmen, March 15th, 2022, and Board of Selectmen, March 22nd, 2022. That's it.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. To kick off tonight's meeting, I'm going to look to Chairman Kevin Sullivan, who is the chair of the Finance Committee, and Town Accountant Todd Hassett for the initial budget presentation.
Good evening. We are a little behind schedule, as you know, in terms of pushing forward the FY23 operating budget. So where we're at is we've developed a sense of what the town's recurring and non-recurring sources of funds are available to support the budget for next year. And in terms of recurring revenue, we typically try to match our ongoing recurring expense and salary budgets with revenue that will sustain and be able to support those services going forward. So when we look at, and in our case, our primary source of revenue is, as you know, property taxes, secondarily local receipts, and to a lesser extent, we have state aid. The state aid component is more of a factor for the regional school district than it is for the town. So what we're looking at is property taxes in total projected to go up about 3.4%, and that's made up of our statutory 2.5% available, which represents about $613,000. At this point, our estimated new growth is around $250,000 or 1% for new construction. And we've seen, this is a little lower than what we've enjoyed the last few years. There's been a slowdown in construction, some of which, as you know, relates to supply, and we also have seen a slowdown in permit revenue, which typically forecasts out 12 to 18 months for new growth. We have a few debt exclusions for the police station and the regional school district. That portion of the additional property taxes is going down slightly by about $21,000. We do have at this point the governor's proposed budget, which reflects about a $41,000 increase in revenue. Not very much. It's about 2.5% as compared to our current state aid. And with respect to local receipts, I'm forecasting just over a 5% increase. And this relates to our motor vehicle excise tax, our permits and licenses and other departmental fees, investment earnings, and those sorts of non-tax departmental revenues. So in total, our recurring revenue at this point is projected to increase by just under 3.5%. We also have, as you know, other sources of funds which we typically use to support the town's capital plan and other special one-time expenses or article requirements. We have healthy free cash. The two enterprise funds have retained earnings or their free cash, both of which are on the low side compared to prior years. And we also used other available funds, such as the septic loan reimbursements from homeowners, to pay off related septic loan debt service. And so at this point, I think Lisa has a handout for you that where she has summarized the departmental requests. And at this point, as you know, typically, by the end of January, we'd also have recommendations getting close to a balanced budget. So that piece hasn't quite occurred yet. So I'll just give you a quick summary of what's included in these budget requests. And it's not going to be inclusive, but just sort of highlights, high level. The budget you have before you, the requests reflect the second year of 3-year collective bargaining agreements for all of the town unions, with the exception of the water union. They're on a different cycle than the other town unions. Their contract is up this June 30th and is, I believe, being negotiated now. So when you look at the water portion of the budget, which really isn't a problem, it's fully funded, you'll notice the salaries are flat, and that's because there's no increase built in yet for any cost of living or any other sort of adjustment to salaries and wages for the water staff. Non-union COLAs are built in the budget at 2%. We did have during the year, as you know, all of the collective bargaining agreements were approved and funded at our most recent fall town meeting. There have been a few minor reclassifications of positions of note in the library. We don't have much in the way of retirements that would yield any significant salary savings, if you will, on younger, lower paid replacements. But in terms of staffing, it's important to note the budget includes the IT director moving from a 0.5 to a 1.0. And as you know, we were previously sharing this with the town of East Bridgewater, and they opted not to renew the agreement as they wanted their own full-time IT director. So we've that was a little north of $60,000 of contribution to offset some of the salary and benefits. So we've picked that up fully going forward. The town in the fall also voted to make the building inspector's position change from a 0.5 to a 1.0, so another half position added in going forward. The police chief has requested a patrolman's position that, as you know, during the union negotiations, it was agreed that that position would not be filled for a few years. He's proposed it back in around July 1st, and that's approximately an $80,000 expense for the community. The highway department, similarly, with some reconstruction of their salaries, has recently filled a laborer's position that was not technically in this year's budget, but they do have funds, and that's probably pushing mid-40s to 50,000 for that position. In addition, you'll notice in the Council on Aging budget an increase in their salaries. This is for a part-time, 19-hour-a-week, non-benefit eligible position for outreach. And this position was previously funded for many years, and the last time we had it was 2010. So, we're trying to support increased outreach for the COA. In terms of the operating expense side, a few items of note. The audit line is increased, and that's a result of The fact that we've received federal funds to the point because of CARES and ARPA and other grants, federal grants, we've popped the threshold where we need additional audit work done as required by the federal government. So that's added a $5,000 cost to the annual audit. And in addition, this is the year, every other year, we need to have actuarial work done to update the town's post-employment benefit liability. And that's coming up in FY23, and that's about $7,000 or so. The legal services budget has been proposed at a $20,000 increase. We've had some internal discussions about whether or not we need to pursue that or perhaps level fund, and that will shake out as we go through the budget process. Technology, you'll notice, has probably one of the larger percentage increases, and that relates to a number of initiatives, including the new permitting and planning software that's being implemented now. Elections, you'll notice we have more elections next year, and we've, as you know, begun to incur more expense around elections due to early voting and absentee voting and more avenues for folks to vote, and which has expanded the need for support staff for the town clerk. Probably the largest, in the police budget, there's a third vehicle, which happens every so many years. Typically, we purchase 2 police vehicles a year in a normal cycle. This budget has a third vehicle proposed, which will be challenging for us to fund, I think. I will note to the board that the chief has submitted a budget for regional dispatch, which includes a $200,000 assessment to the region. This, we believe, is fully covered by a state grant for another year, and then starting in FY24, for the next few years, we'll wean off the state grant incrementally. I think it's 75% state paid, then 50 the year after, then 25, to the point where the town will assume the full responsibility of the regional assessment. We've enjoyed this state grant, this is, I think, the 3rd year, at no cost to the town for those services to support public safety. The education assessments are probably the biggest wild card for us, which is, as you know, typically an annual challenge. Initially, Lisa and I put in a placeholder to sort of match our recurring revenue right around 3.5%, and the assessments have come in, requests initially higher than that. So that's something we're going to need to work on reducing and modifying over the next few weeks. The snow budget, the highway superintendent did propose a modest increase to that, trying to get that to a level where we're funding at kind of the average of a 5-year expense, average 5-year expense. The employee benefits section, we've got a 6% rate increase for our group, which may be coming in a little less. We've got some preliminary indication that it may come in a little lower than that. And also a fairly large 6-figure increase to our pension assessment for Plymouth County. It's just over $140,000 increase compared to the current year. So that's a big fixed, those fixed costs are still, you know, challenging at that level. In terms of debt service, I mentioned the police station and the regional school debt. Our debt service is fairly stable. As we look at the 5-year capital plan, which we're not planning to do this evening, primarily what you see in terms of potential future debt relates to facility improvements for the town, perhaps public works, library, council on aging, and any potential improvements at the old Plymouth County Hospital site, perhaps. But the large debt that the town is going to be grappling with in the next couple of years relates to water improvements primarily. So, and the plan will be to fund those through rates and water revenue, not through taxation. So the requests you see before you, some of them are a result of the action of the fall town meeting that I mentioned. Some are a result of the collective bargaining agreements, and some of these increases that I've highlighted for the board that departments have requested, should funds be available. So at this time, we also have requests from the water department, which I've mentioned are fully fundable with their current rate structure. The transfer station and the Camp Kewanee, the Recreation Enterprise funds are both still challenging in terms of the revenue side. Their expenses and their requested expenses far exceed their ability to bring in revenue to support those salaries and expenses. And if their current requests were fully supported and funded, if the board supported this, it would require about a $300,000 subsidy from the general fund, which breaks out approximately $135 for recreation and $165 for the transfer station. This year, you may recall, the transfer station subsidy came from free cash, which was, you know, it's a recurring cost and it came from a non-recurring source. But because we were challenged with the override, we did what we could, and free cash was used this year with no subsidy for recreation. So that's a big change to go up to 300,000 there. That something we'll need some guidance from the board on. So bottom line, where we're at right now, based on the requests, is that we have about a $966,000 shortfall based on using recurring revenues and sources as compared to the departmental requests. So we've got a number of decisions that we've got to really grapple with over the next few weeks around what we can support in terms of new initiatives or supplemental funding of the enterprises and what may need to be trimmed back. But there's no question we're going to need some partnership and cooperation from the regional school district. We're not in a position to fund the budget as initially requested. We've also drafted a 5-year capital plan, which again, we're not really going to talk much about tonight, but we're still waiting for a little bit of input from recreation and certainly the board's input. But initially, it's heavily weighted for the water department, a number of system improvements in excess of $13 million. Some of that may not come up at the May town meeting. Some of that may spill into the fall town meeting. As you recall, our 5-year plan has to be voted in May. And if we do anything during the next year, it's got to still be reflected in the 5-year matrix of the town's capital plan. So there are upwards of $850,000 of facility-related improvements that the board may consider to do with the former Plymouth County Hospital property, sidewalk improvements and trails, furnace and roof replacement at the town hall, a feasibility study for the fire station, HVAC work at both the senior center and the library, and some waterfront improvements and cabin repairs for recreation that they are not in a position to fund themselves. In terms of vehicles and equipment, not much, but a couple of large pieces of equipment for the highway department are requested. a 10-wheel dump truck, and a 1-ton dump truck. So the plan is, in total for next year, over nearly $15 million, but over 13.5 of it relates to water system improvements, which will all be primarily long-term debt service financed. We have only proposed to add $25,000 to the town's post-employment benefit trust. Our liability is in the multi-millions, and we really haven't been in a position to fund much toward the OPEB trust. What you have before you includes a request for $25,000. We don't have anything at this time proposed to be added to the town stabilization fund or the school capital stabilization fund, which we typically try to supplement once or twice a year as funds are available and there's an opportunity. The water department has a surplus of just over $1 million, and they'll likely be using 650 of that for the two of the smaller projects in the capital plan, which will leave about 13 million to be financed through debt service. The two enterprises retained earnings, the recreation basically has nothing available until they recertify next year. You may recall in the fall, we needed to ask town meeting to amend their budget and utilized their available retained earnings to help in that shoring up of their budget to get through this year. They also subsequently had a $30,000 transfer granted by the Finance Committee in addition to what town meeting approved in October. The transfer station has just over $36,000 in their retained earnings available. We're proposing to use 35 of that to support the operating budget, thereby reducing the general fund tax subsidy, if you will. But there is still a substantial subsidy for that program. So our free cash available is just over 1.7 million. We typically use some of it at our May special town meeting for maybe some small article requirements, which we don't have yet, excuse me, and just supplement any needs in the current year budget. And typically, typically in our case relates primarily to snow removal. So we've already, at this point, our $300,000 snow budget is already in a deficit position, a modest deficit with more snow weather predicted for Friday. So we've really got to keep an eye on that. That will likely reduce what we're able to do in terms of the operating budget or capital needs if we need to shore up, depending on how much we need to shore up for snow this year. So my initial projection shows us utilizing just over $1 million for the capital plan. Again, about $250,000 for the operating budget, which relates to the middle school HVAC debt service, which is a little over $200,000, and the possibility of funding that third vehicle for the police department, that off-cycle odd vehicle through free cash. And then we've got to really grapple with what level of subsidy the board and the finance committee ultimately want to support for the two enterprises. So that could pretty much whittle down most of our $1.7 million to well under $100,000 available after town meeting. So, we're not in a position this evening to present you a balanced budget like we typically attempt to do. We've got a bit of work to do over the next few weeks. State aid may improve, although it's not a large source of revenue for us. We'd really hope that it would improve for the school district under Chapter 78. And then our new growth is off, as I mentioned, new construction for new property tax. So we're continuing to monitor that, hoping for an uptick in construction. the education assessments need to be sort of tidied down to a manageable amount. And we're waiting for any other potential article requests, which I believe are due in early March. And just to remind everyone, our town meeting is May 2nd. So with that, that's a sort of quick overview. And Kevin and I have already had discussions. We plan on working closely together to close this gap in a way that's in the town's best interest. And certainly we're looking for input from the board as we go along.
Great, thank you very much. Chairman
Thank you.
Sullivan, is there anything that you wanted to add?
No, I think Todd provided a very detailed summary of where we are. Again, I'll just say we're starting behind where we normally are. And even though, the town came together last year with some heroic efforts, we still have a deficit to overcome, a fairly significant deficit. And I think we need to look at the individual departments. And, again, personnel is a huge cost. So is this the right time to add new personnel? I think the departments have to look at that individually. And again, we come back, as usual, to the subsidies that we're gonna have to provide for both the transfer station and recreation. The retained earnings just aren't there anymore. So at some point, we're gonna have to come to, some fairly difficult decisions regarding both of those entities. I think looking at the school assessment, while we're hoping it will come down, it is less of a gap than we've had to cover in previous years. I think their percentage, Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, was 4.5, 4.7. And so.
Yeah, in that neighborhood, it might have been a little higher, but you're right. Comparatively, they're starting at a lower increase.
Yeah, they started at a much.
We likely can't afford much more than, just under 3.5, right around, what our revenue growth is.
So, I would echo what Todd said is, we have some significant challenges and it's gonna have to be, we're gonna have to make some difficult decisions here over the next few months.
Great, thank you very much, gentlemen. Any questions from the board? No? All right, well, we will look forward to working with you in the next couple of weeks. Please reach out if you guys need anything from us.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, is to discuss and vote to refer marijuana article to the planning board. Just as a refresher for those who have forgotten what had happened in the fall, there was a citizen's petition out to have us legalize retail marijuana in the community. And we wanted to work together with the petitioner because we wanted to make sure we had the right language in there rather than hoping for the best. With that being said, I wanted to kind of revive that discussion. Ms. Green.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So as Mr. Chairman summarized back in October at the special town meeting, there was a citizen's petition to introduce reconsidering of the bylaw that was put into place for marijuana in terms of the restrictions of sales and bylaw. And the person that put forth the citizen's petition tabled it. There was going to be help from our town council and the planning board to review this and then work on the language for annual town meeting. So here with us is our town council, Kate, who can speak of working on the actual language and working with the town planner on presenting these to the planning board.
Yeah, sure. So the good news with Hanson is we've had a couple of runs at this. So we have some templates to go off of. So as a matter of fact, if the board refers this issue to the planning board this evening, I intend on meeting with the planning board. I think I'm going to Zoom in next Monday to discuss the options, because even with all the iterations that went back and forth through various town meetings, et cetera, there needs to be a cleanup of that particular bylaw regardless of the town wants retail marijuana or not. We should do an overhaul. So we were talking, Tony and I were talking actually to maybe put 2 articles forward. So one kind of a comprehensive just overhaul to have it make sense and be usable. And then a second article to essentially allow for retail. And we're thinking, as we know from before, perhaps there's an appetite to look at the areas that we had originally proposed, which include the main thoroughfare for commercial businesses in the town, as probably suitable locations, as opposed to just putting the retail, it doesn't make sense necessarily from a planning perspective to keep it in the industrial zone only. So that's what we intend on doing on Monday night and getting started with this process so we can get the article on the warrant so that the folks at home can join us and express their opinion.
Great, thank you. Now, Ms. Federoff, in the new versions that you're thinking of, is this just going to be strictly retail, or is this also going to be all the new business opportunities, I guess, in lack of a better word, such as cafes, and deliverables and whatnot, or delivery?
So cafes, no one worry. Cafes are a whole different animal, and the CCC still hasn't gotten its arms around cafes because it's very tricky. So there's still a pilot program, and we wouldn't even be eligible because there were 12 communities that were selected for the pilot program to roll out cafes and see how they worked, and then with that information and data, they're going to tweak their regulations. The CCC will tweak their regulations to see what works and what doesn't work. So yes, so it will be a comprehensive overhaul of the bylaw because there were things in there that just, I know, it just didn't make sense. It was like a mirror of the medical marijuana bylaw. We just superimposed recreational on it, and it probably just makes sense to kind of tailor the bylaw to what we've learned from the industry, and perhaps even combine medical and recreational in the same bylaw. Because for all intents and purposes, if you're growing marijuana for recreational use versus marijuana for medical use, the impacts on the community are the same. Now, whether or not you want to do that is a different thing, but the citizens have already voiced their opinion on that topic. But now that you've decided, okay, we want to allow recreational marijuana, why not harmonize those 2 bylaws and make them one? Because the smell of growing marijuana is the same whether or not it's used for recreational or medical, So yes, it will be a full review. I think the last time, though, we did allow for delivery as well at the last town meeting. So that's already been decided by the residents, but we'll make sure it fits in squarely in the bylaw so that anyone at home can pick it up, read it, and understand it. That's the point.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
So we're just going to, and I know you're going to do this, I just feel like I have to say this out loud. I want to make sure that we don't unwittingly cut our legs off for what has already been permitted.
Yes.
In the event that the new, proposal doesn't pass. So growth, a grow facility, delivery, those are already kind of there and have gotten support.
Yeah, and that's a super good point, Laura, and that's why I thought it best to do 2 separate articles, because retail is the one that's going to generate discussion, right? And I think when we talk about it at the town meeting, we say Article 1 or whatever it is, the article that is just the cleanup article. That's all it is. We're not adding anything new in here. We're just making sure it makes sense here's what the changes are, this should be a no-brainer, 2/3, no problem. If that fails for some reason, we're just left with the old bylaw anyway.
Okay, all right, yep.
It's just a messy old
Yeah.
bylaw. And then the one that's going to generate discussion is the retail, and that's, again, a policy decision, a preference decision, and that will be the interesting one, we'll say.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I got a question, I guess.
Weeks.
So it says that we are referring the marijuana article to the planning board. So they're obviously going to look at this. We're asking them to look at it, write it, do the whole 9 yards with the timeline. And we're coming up
Yes.
quick. So we have enough time to thoroughly go through this, because one of the things I don't want to do is try and give too much of an expeditious timeline on this, and then have that be the reason for the debate on the town meeting floor versus the merits of the actual article.
Yeah, and we do have enough time.
Okay.
We have enough time, and especially if the planning board submits a report, because for a zoning bylaw, when you have a change, you either have to wait 21 days unless the planning board submits a report, and I expect they will.
Okay.
So we can reduce the timeline that's required. And the good news is, because we've had such a long history here in Hanson of various iterations of marijuana, it's not going to be as big of a haul, because in the beginning, we were trying to figure out, what do the residents of Hanson want? I don't know. And if you remember, I think it was the moratorium that failed, and everyone took a step back and we were shocked, right? We didn't expect that. That's the funny thing about a town meeting. You never know what to expect. But now we have a better sense of what to expect, and we have these great templates. So now it's a matter of just refining the existing
Yeah.
and making it usable.
Yeah, I remember 4 years ago, whatever it was, when we were trying to put this together, it was more along the lines of the Cannabis Control Commission. Hope it's not the Cannibal Control Commission. Cannabis, that'd be a whole different commission. The Cannabis Control Commission was just coming on board. Everything it was just the Wild West trying to figure this stuff out. So we have 4 years or 5 years, whatever it is, worth of additional data. So hopefully it's quick. I just want to make sure the timeline's good. So it sounds like it is. Great.
Any other questions?
Matt?
Mr. Malisi, yeah.
So, first off, I just want to thank you, because when I tabled that discussion, I had your word that you would bring this again to the next town meeting, and I definitely appreciate you guys working on it. And I don't think there's any more of a clear indication from what Todd and Kevin just said, that we need some revenue in this town, however we get it. $900,000 short of a budget, something 3% of any retail facility that's in here can fund a new police car, or fund things like that. So, that's a debate that will happen after the planning board submits their report, and I'm sure me and Mr. Hickey will get into that one pretty soon. But until then, I just want to say that I didn't even know it was on the agenda tonight, to be honest with you. I just kind of showed up for recreation stuff, but not recreation that way, but I just want to say I really appreciate you guys working on it, and thank you for keeping your word on that. I know in town government things can get a little wishy-washy, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right.
Matt, I only have one question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair. Kate, you know me with language.
Yes.
Whether it's, a new bylaw cleaning up the old one, or when it's discussed as an article, or if it gets on town ballot, I just want to make sure that it's basically in layman's terms, so that people will be able to understand it. We had discussed that before on a ballot question, and you were able to make it easier to read and understand. And I just want to make sure that, that we have that again, so that,
I will be careful not to legalese it up too much. And more importantly, I will be there to answer anyone's questions, and I welcome anyone to attend the public hearing when we get down to refining the language, and I'm happy to answer anyone's questions and make sure the explanation is super clear as well.
Thank you.
So I will work on that. Thanks, Jim.
Great. Any other?
No, did you need a motion?
I'm looking for a motion. Thank you.
I move to refer this article to the planning board for their consideration and action.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Second, all in favor? 5-0.
But that's the last time.
You said that last time, too. You said that last time.
All right, the next item on the agenda is to adopt Recreation Commission policies and procedures. Mr. Malisi, do you mind coming to the podium and kind of giving us
Sure.
a high-level view of changes or anything that you think that the board needs to know?
Sure. So I mean, the policies and procedures that we have that we're looking to get adopted that we voted on recently, I mean, there's about 20 pages of them going through here. A lot of different typo errors that we had in there, like selectman to selectmen. One of the most recent changes that we just voted on was to make it so our policies and procedures reflected the clause that was in the vendor contract. So it was specified in two different places. That we had a policies and procedures version of it, and then we had one on our vendor contract as well, which contradicted each other. So we actually went through and fixed that. Most of them is the same policies and procedures that we had from the last commission as well that got voted in with them, but not approved by the board. I can go through all of them if you'd like, or if anybody would just like to ask me any questions about it, I can kind of clarify. There was some recreation director positions that were in here, and we added some teams that we have at the commission level and things like that. So, this is the policies and procedures. I don't think we've had an actual voted on Board of Selectmen policies and procedures in 4 or 5 years. So we're just looking to kind of shore this process up with our rate increase that we did.
Thank you. I guess my big question is a question and a comment. So I know that we have a relatively new commission up there.
Very new, yep.
So one thing that I've been asking for the last 4 years, maybe 5 years before I was on the board, was we really need to start seeing a business plan to really understand what's going on up there operationally, because
Absolutely.
as we heard tonight and as you just mentioned, the camp's going to be looking for another subsidy.
Correct.
And, one thing I would like to see maybe before town meeting would be a financial plan, a projection of what you guys are going to see in the next couple of years, just so we can get an understanding, because it's like, oh, okay, another subsidy, and we keep on hearing, oh yeah, it's going to get better, it's going to get better.
Yep.
Understandably so, we had COVID, and no one's going to knock the camp for not making progress in 2 years because of a global pandemic.
Yeah.
But it just was something that I've been asking for, and it always fell short. So maybe that would be one good thing to kind of see coming back.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So we have a meeting on the 28th. I'll put that on the agenda. We can start that process. I know that the rate increase that me and Audrey brought over to you guys to get, that was kind of a business plan there as well. It did show our projected revenue from 2022 and 2023 with different rate increases that we have there. We can kind of shore that up there. We had the pandemic happen, but we still need to make a level business up there. I mean, that's what it is essentially, is a business. So, we do have other ways that we're trying to generate revenue. We applied for some ARPA funds and things like that. So if those come in, then hopefully we wouldn't need a subsidy from the town. Obviously, those rate increases will do us a lot of good once they actually start getting into effect. The issue with that is that we had most of our 2022 dates are booked up already. So we're now booking for 2023, and that's where we'll really see those rate increases come into play. But I can absolutely get you a business plan. It won't be in a week. I'll probably get it to you. I will certainly get it to you at town meeting.
Just a budget, just
yeah.
to see the next couple of fiscal years.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't take, I'm speaking for myself, not as the commission, obviously, but I don't take going to town meeting and asking them for money lightly. But, we had a discussion the other day at the camp about, do we have enough money to have one of the caretakers paint the wall? I mean,
That's getting real.
it's a double-edged sword, because if we don't have money to pay the caretakers to upkeep the camp's going to deteriorate faster than it already is right now. So I understand. I pay taxes in this town just as much as everybody else does. But we have a big issue up there, and it didn't help for the last 2 years. But we're trying to go through it. So.
And I know that I was not here for the rates.
I can get you a copy of that.
It was a good discussion.
Yeah, it was a good discussion. I did watch. Just one comment on that. I know that town council last fall had kind of mentioned that we should be moving away from an 80-20 split.
Yes.
We shouldn't be doing 80-20 splits anymore, just because it's really starting to get into people's, look into their purse, and we really have no business into looking into people's finances of their businesses. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that maybe this, I know that we have to set our policies and our rates, but maybe this is something that we should be revisiting to make it more equitable and to kind of take away that liability, I should say.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, if we have another option, do it. The problem is we also need to provide the recreation at a reasonable rate. 80-20 split of their net profits that they have, it's not that much money that the vendors are paying us. It will just cover our caretaker cost in most situations. So, I wouldn't, as I'll use Drama Kids as an example, I wouldn't want to charge them $100 a class that they have there, because that might be, our cost might be $30, but we're charging them $100 for it. And that will come out of their pocket for the recreation that they have. I mean, we shouldn't be subsidizing people's business, but we also shouldn't be making a huge profit off of recreation. That's not what they're for. We make our profit off of the weddings and things like that. So
My
I agree.
concern there, though, is is that you are essentially charging people different amounts, right? So that's inconsistent. And I get where you're coming from, and I know that this is past practice. Kate did very strongly encourage us to not just move away, I would say to stop the practice. That message may not have been communicated to the current Recreation Commission, but the other thing is, honestly, unless you forensically go through and figure out what people's costs versus revenue are, we're really never going to know what the net, quote unquote, net profit. Like, we don't have an accountant sitting by to go through people's books to figure out.
Correct.
What
It's hard to audit.
Yeah, it is, and so it's a sort of I guess a good faith type of an arrangement. So I wonder, since we are way off topic, but since we already went into these down this Primrose path, and Kate is here, I'm wondering if she might share with Frank firsthand what her thoughts were, so he can transmit that message back.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have, since our last conversation, we have worked with the Recreation Commission to shore up the contracts. So I am less concerned as I had been in the past about liability and, but from a policy perspective, that's something that you all dictate, the auditability of it, what's fair, what's reasonable, are people feeling like they're being treated differently for arbitrary reasons, perhaps. So there are a whole host of policy reasons that you may want to move away from the 80-20 split, but we have changed the contracts, and that's part of the reason why.
Yeah, I have them right. Yeah, I have them right over here. So I have all the contracts that we have with the. That was another discussion that we've been having the past couple of weeks. So
we feel better about being compliant, whether or not it's the right thing to do or the direction the town wants to take. That's a separate issue. But I have fewer hesitations today than I did 6 months ago.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're probably fine with this, but I don't want to speak for you, but I just want to make sure that we're sticking to this, because we can put,
That's fine.
yeah, we can put this on a next agenda, because I just want to give you the ability to be able to prepare for what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, either way, I mean, I can't, like I said, I can't speak for the commission. I can speak for myself. I mean, I would be, if you have any suggestions on how we'd be able to split those contracts, that's something we try to rewrite the contracts every year and fix them every year. So we're coming up on that date where we can vote that in as commission. We're going to start a new process where we talk to our vendors before we implement the policy. And then we will go ahead and get those changes. I personally think that 80-20 is equitable, just because, 20% of one person's revenue is not necessarily the same as 20% of somebody else's, but there's some programs that don't make that much money. And, 20% to them is still, a good amount of money.
Sure. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm going off the rails here, but it is a policy.
It is, it's a policy procedure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll bring that up as a discussion on our meeting that we have on the 28th. And we can fill that agenda up with Board of Selectmen items.
And then one other policy that we had implemented a couple of years ago prior to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I know the commission had come before us to ask to raise the rates at Cranberry Cove. Mm-hmm. And I voted for it, although I was against the principle of raising the rates. But one thing that we had agreed on when we did have a recreation director there, and it never really got implemented, was that there would be 2 day passes down at the library. So families, if they wanted to, and they don't necessarily have the means to pay whatever it is, they can go down to the library, grab the pass, just like the Science Museum, Plymouth Plantation, whatever else, and go to the Cranberry Cove. So that's just one thing I wanted to make sure that's not lost in translation, and it'd be great to be thrown into the policies and procedures.
I can certainly do that. I know the past 2 years, it's been swim at your own risk, so nobody's been paying for a pass down there at Cranberry Cove. So, that might have happened right at the beginning of COVID, but I can certainly put that in here. We can certainly make that edit.
So, and then other than that, it's very thorough. I think that you guys have done a really, really great job, especially with a relatively new commission. I know the old commission's been working on this for a few years, but I know that the new commission really kind of picked it up and ran with it. So I appreciate that. Any questions from the board or any comments?
Yep. First, any way we can turn the heat down? It's like a sauna in here.
Sure.
I'm wearing a hat and a jacket.
And Kenny, I'm surprised you didn't say that. You're usually with me
I'll
on
have
the
the air on.
temperature. And second, I applaud this. I thought it was extremely thorough. There's a part of me that there were some ethics things in here, some open meeting law things in here. And so I think it would behoove us to put something in here that says in the event of a conflict between the town's bylaws, the state ethics and employment laws, those would prevail over these policies, just to be clear.
So I think in the last page of this, it should have, sorry, I'm getting my job descriptions and everything mixed up now. Recreation Committee representing the town of Hanson, I recognize that, it goes through a list of things here, and one of them is, policies. I thought we had the ethics in here.
Well, no.
I know we had something about that in here,
So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to say the checklist. I'm saying all of these things, that there should be a little footnote, like, please note, in the event of a conflict between the state, regulations regarding anything, really.
Yeah.
The town's bylaws, again, regarding anything, and employment laws, those would prevail over our little policies and procedures.
I certainly hope they would, yeah, I could definitely put that in there.
I know it seems clear, but I could see somebody saying, well, I signed this paper, and I read the policies, and it didn't say that in there. So just out of an abundance of caution, I'd love a little footnote in there.
Absolutely, we can go ahead and make that edit in there as well. I would expect that once this is approved by us and then approved by the board, it would probably, I don't know if it usually goes to legal to have them look it over. We had a couple questions in here about things like ADA and stuff like that, making sure that it's compliant with ADA and things like that. We're not lawyers on the Recreation Committee, so, I don't know if that's what we do with our policies and procedures. If that's the case, I would certainly like it to go that route, just so we know that our policies are, in good standing. But, most of the stuff is just pretty, no smoking in the lodge and, fires and, firecrackers and stuff, so.
Right, well, I think if there's any questions about any legality things, like ADA, there's one thing that just so we're not pulling money out of our legal budget, to have the whole thing reviewed, maybe pull out specific questions that you guys are concerned about.
Okay.
There are other agencies in the Commonwealth too that we could rely on too, like the AD, there's a department just for ADA specifically. And you could ask questions of, whatever it may be. Our building inspector is a really great resource too for ADA. They should know the policies of what your slope should be. So, so what's, any specific questions that you think that needs to be checked out by legal? Just write them up, have them go through Ms. Green, and I'll be more than happy to help in any way possible.
Awesome, yeah, I appreciate it. So what I'll do is I'll take the edits that you guys would like, and I'll bring them back to the commission, the commission on our next meeting, and then I can send you guys over a new copy of the policies and procedures that are there.
Great, any other questions?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry,
Mr.
Mr.
Hickey.
Chair. Frank, I have one question for
Sure.
you. You had said with the old policies and procedures, there was some confusion on the vendor contract.
Correct.
Okay. Halfway down on page 10.
Yep.
It says all event and vendor services must pay a portion of Camp Kawani's cost for services provided to them, the program outlined in the facility agreement.
Correct.
So my question would be, what portion?
So there's a couple different portions in there. So there's one, so if I have a couple, some vendor contracts, let me just pull them up so I know exactly what I'm going to.
Well, is it outlined in the recreation facility license agreement?
It is, so, and, you know, this is a good point. So this is section 4 of it, and it said, consideration for the contract shall be 20% of the revenue received from activities in addition to an hourly staff fee of $15 an hour. Staff fee may be waived when the administrative assistant is available during normal business hours, and administrative assistant will notify lessee of availability. This is payable to Town of Hanson Recreation in lieu of rental fees. And it also goes on to say the license agreement is furnished any and all accounting records, receipts, and other information reasonably required by the town to determine the amount of revenue generated by the licensed activity. Quarterly, unless otherwise noted, individual amends must be paid as they occur. So that section right there essentially said in the older policies and procedures that were not approved by the Board of Selectmen, that it would be 20% of the revenue, and that's it.
No caretaker fee.
No caretaker fee. The caretaker fee is only assessed to a vendor when we do not already have a caretaker on site for a scheduled event. You know, we have Dory there between 9 and 2 every day. We have scheduled events most of the time during the summertime. So that is only assessed when we have to call in a scheduled caretaker for that particular vendor event. And that section that you had right there essentially just made it so the policies and procedures point to this. So every time we change the rental agreement at the camp, we also don't have to change the policies and procedures in conjunction with the rental agreement. We would just change the rental agreement and just do them in one point there. I'm turning into a lawyer. You know, I haven't been to school, but, you know, me and Kate, you know. I read that pretty fast. Yeah,
So
go
that I
ahead.
have an understanding.
Absolutely.
It's the 80-20 split plus the cost of a caretaker if another event is not already planned during that time.
Or Dory's not there.
Or Dory's not there, correct, yes.
Okay.
So it'd be $15 per hour, which is the rate that it's not the exact rate, I believe, depending on the caretaker, we pay anywhere between, I believe, $14.25 was the last wage of personnel, up to 15 something an hour. So we split it in the middle, the last commission split it in the middle at $15 an hour when they approved this license agreement to have that $15 an hour assessed to the vendor when there's no other person on site.
Okay,
and
so
that's just to keep it so we have level. We're not making money off those caretakers being there. It's just so we can pay the caretakers to actually be there and not lose money on the labor that we have.
Okay, so could you give me an example of an event?
Sure. So if a vendor wanted to come in the morning times, let's say at 10 o'clock, and our caretakers were setting up for a wedding, but the wedding wasn't until 3, but their, you know, event was from 10 to 11. You know, drama kids wanted to do something from 10 to 11 in the morning, but we had a caretaker there setting up for a wedding out back. That's a situation right there. Or if, you know, if we had a recreation committee meeting, it's a good example. They usually last 2 hours, and somebody wanted to use the library for an event. We wouldn't require them to pay that because there's somebody on site. Legally, from our insurance perspective, from what I understand, we need to have somebody on site at all times when a vendor's in the building. If somebody was outside on like the pavilion or something like that, they wouldn't need a caretaker out there. They would be able to, you know, have you know, their thing out there. Obviously, with commission approval, they'd be able to have that out there. But anytime they're inside the lodge, they would need to have a caretaker there. So and we're not going to go off and say, well, this caretaker was over here doing something, so you still need to. We want the people who are providing recreation to come here and not have to pay this fee if we already have somebody scheduled there. This is just a safeguard so we're not losing money when we have somebody come in that their 20% might not fit that $30 a day of
Okay.
what they have.
So maybe I'm becoming a lawyer, Kate, because sort of at the bottom of page 10, it says all events and vendor services. So even though the caretakers are there to set up for the wedding, once the wedding starts, is there a caretaker there?
We would not, I don't believe we would have, so, yeah, there is a caretaker at a wedding. There has to be a
Okay,
caretaker. at a wedding.
so the wedding itself has to pay the $15.
That's built into the cost of the wedding.
It is?
Yeah, that's a part, we don't expect them to come off and pay another, you know, $60 or something like that on top of the wedding fee that they have. I mean, as a part of,
Right?
I'm impressed.
Thank you.
that was, yeah, I mean, honestly, that was, you know, that's some Judge Judy level questioning right there.
Frank,
I'm not beating anybody.
I don't want to dwell on this too long. I know, I'm just thinking about back to this fall when Camp Kawani was the meeting to watch. There
Still
was-
is, by the way.
Still is, absolutely,
Still
still
is.
is, yeah. There was debate whether or not what the word revenue meant. was this, is that defined in?
It is not. I'm under the assumption that when we say 20% of net profits, it would be unrealistic to ask anybody for 20% of gross profits. That's just absurd. I mean, like, if we had ran a swim program down there and they're already making 20, why would they come to us? We haven't defined it in here. We certainly can.
I think that might be a good idea,
That would,
so we don't. end
that
up
would be a
back
better,
involved.
that would be a better addition to the license agreement than it would be to the policies and procedures. So I will go ahead and assume that this is 20% of the net profits is what we've been asking for. You know, I know there was a lot of discussion on that last time, and I personally thought that was absurd. So, yeah, we can add that into.
Spell it out, Frank, definitely.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. You know, once we go through and redo the license agreement, we can go ahead and do that. I don't think we've ever told a vendor that it'd be 20% of the gross profits. That'd be insanity, so.
Excellent. Any other discussion? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve the Hanson Recreation Commission policies and procedures.
So moved.
So moved with my little tweak of the,
Yeah, I have the two amendments, and I'll forward those off to you guys, once we vote on them.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much.
Good job.
All right, the next item on the agenda is to vote and adopt and implement Highway Department time card policy. Ms. Green?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, one of our previous audit managers' letters recommended a highway department time card policy and procedure. The highway director has developed a policy and procedure and has forwarded along to the Board of Selectmen to review and approve. And then I will send this over to the auditors just so that this has been done. I don't know if you remember, a few years back, there was a question regarding time cards and an employee who was changing time cards, who didn't have authority. This policy and procedure eliminates any of that. Basically, it's only management who can alter any time card for any employee. Other employees are not to touch any other employee's time cards. So this is what the auditors have asked for, and we want to make sure we get it compliant and get it to them to satisfy that management letter.
Perfect. With that being said, Ms. Green, do we have a policy that covers other departments as well that is similar to this? And because my question is this something that we should implement to all departments and just not highway?
Well, only departments that have time cards.
Okay.
The highway is, as far as I know, one of the only departments where they actually punch a time card. I don't believe any other departments do.
Recreation, are you guys on time cards yet?
I know we've recently upgraded the system. I will have to check on that, but I mean, it would not be a bad idea.
Yeah, because I know at one point you guys were talking about getting time cards and whatnot, so.
I thought we already, we have seen this policy, and I thought we already adopted it. But, I mean, I don't care, it's not gonna hurt to adopt it again, but,
Okay.
yeah.
So, all right, well, with that being said,
I move.
any questions?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 5-0. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is to vote to confirm the middle school as the location for the annual town meeting for May 2nd, 2022. I know in the past we had discussed having it up at the high school, but it's really the moderator's event. And the town moderator would like to hold it at the middle school. So just to give a vote of confidence, I'm looking for a motion to confirm the location of the annual town meeting on May 2nd.
So moved.
At the middle school. Moved,
Second.
seconded, all in favor? 5-0. All right, Selectmen sponsored articles for town meeting. So as we're ramping up for annual town meeting, it's this time of year to get any proposed articles to the Board of Selectmen and our town administrator before May 4th, right, Lucia?
March.
4th is the deadline.
March 4th is the deadline. So please get your articles in. With that being said, Ms. Green.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so we do have some articles that were submitted by one of our fellow selectmen to review, and it's just basically, the language hasn't been put together yet.
Well, actually, my language has been put together. I sent it to Lucia today, and I've tweaked quite a few of these, so this is like yesterday's news. what's in the package. I don't know how you want to go, if you want me to kind of go through. Lucia, do you have
That would be
do
great.
you have an ability to print out what I sent to you today?
Upstairs, right?
That might make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Because I really fleshed it out.
Yeah, no, but I
Okay.
think for tonight, I think it would be good just to kind of go over just, this is what I like, this is what I would like, this is what I would like.
Okay.
And if you have the
Yeah.
language, then we can look at it at another night. But I figured tonight would be a good night just to kind of make sure that the whole board is communicating. And get our list of everything that, we would like to be on the town meeting, whether or not it's prepared or not. I just
That's
wanted to.
fine, I can go
yeah.
through it. I
Yeah,
can
so
go through
do you want to
it.
go through yours
Yeah.
first, Ms. Kemet?
All right, so the first thing that I had is, I know we've had a long-standing policy where we've encouraged people to videotape meetings, and that has not been complied with at all. And I find it very difficult myself, even if I'm trying to keep up on what other boards and committees are doing, or if even I'm just like, oh, I wonder, what such and such a committee voted on, and you can't find any videos out there for the meetings. I would like to require that people videotape the meetings. We've suggested, we've even said to our own appointed boards and committees that would like them to do it, but there's a lot of elected boards in town that are not doing it, and it just doesn't play well. It's not transparent, it's not helpful for people who are trying to catch up and figure out what's going on, and honestly, there's no reason for it. The cable guys have got the equipment up here at Town Hall. It's easy breezy. They'll train people on it, or people can have it down in they can have their meeting down in the Selectmen's meeting room. And so that was one of the articles that I had suggested. Another one is, technically, to comply with open meeting laws, you're not required to post your meeting agenda and minutes on our town website. However, once again, in the interest of transparency, if you want people to be able to catch up with what's going on, you'd post your meeting virtually so that people can see that virtually. Because to think, the notion that people are going to run down to the lobby of Town Hall on Thursday or Friday afternoon to see what people are meeting about the following week is an old-fashioned notion, and I don't think that it's particularly collaborative or inviting of engagement with people. So again, I've got a request that be required. Even though it's not required by the law, it will be required by the town. Then there were a few that I kind of, McQuon School, we have discussed time and time again, trying to figure out how to reuse that. Some recent discussions with the town planner and others have led us to believe we just need to cut to the chase and tear that down. What that would be used for is a subject for future discussions, but sports field, increasing the size of the senior center, the library.
Tear it down, Laura?
What are you saying?
Do we have a price yet to tear it down?
We already had an article, we'll have to get another, have to get that refreshed, but if you remember, 2 years ago, we got, maybe possibly longer, because it was under Mike McHugh, he got an estimate, and it was a little over $1 million. Again, some of that may be able to be paid for with community preservation funds, so there's some discussion depending upon what that is used for. If it's used to put sports fields in, which there is a huge push for, and we know that folks don't like the condition, and I haven't liked it for 15 years, of the field down at Hanson Middle School for soccer. We know that the lacrosse and football guys are all competing for the fields. We know we need more fields and we need better conditions. So maybe that's what we do with McQuon, and then we give some space to the senior center / library to build out a little bit more, because they've both done studies and they know. So anyway, that's my long-winded way of saying municipal use of some sort, because we know we don't want to give that up. But let's tear down McQuon. And I don't say that lightly. Then I'd like to commission a study to take a look at whether, whether oh, thank you. let's see, regarding town hall administrative staff and efficiencies that might be gained by cross-training and shared software. We heard tonight from Todd that, they are moving towards some shared permitting software. That's been a long time coming. And I think Deb Petty really kind of got that ball rolling. But, one of the things that is always puzzling to me is the notion that there's not resource sharing amongst the departments, and it is not something that I am used to seeing in the private sector, where it's all hands on deck. If somebody has capacity and somebody else doesn't, everybody's kind of sharing. But I'd like a third party to be able to come in, like a Collins Center or like Bridgewater State. So I'm not talking about, super, super expensive. A consulting, low cost, come in and say to us, yeah, we think if you change this, or you did that, or some minor modification. There was a study done about 8 years ago. I believe it was the Collins Center that did it. And maybe it's just a case of us brushing that off and refreshing it, and seeing what's changed in the interim. So that was one of them. And then I would like to, and this could be prospective, and it could be more than one, but two, to permit an individual to hold only one of the following elected offices: Board of Selectmen, Water Commission, Board of Health, and Planning Board. And my thought process that there is any one of those, and maybe, this is a subject for debate amongst the board. Maybe you could say two. But I think to have any one person be on 3 or 4 elected boards, which is really permitted at this time, I think stacks the deck in a number of ways that is not healthy for conflicts of interest. It also does not do us any good in terms of the dedication that is required for those roles. We know the time we're all putting in on Board of Selectmen. Possibly you could do one other elected office, but the fact that you would have somebody on 3 elected boards, I think is problematic. But anyway, a subject for discussion. The purchase of a generator for the transfer station. I reached out today to the chair of the Board of Health to pass this by, because I felt like I didn't want to really step on anybody's feet on this, because I realized that that's under their purview. But I had a discussion with Lisa and our town planner and the Economic Development Committee, sort of like this kind of tangent that we went off on, talking about ARPA funds and how they could be used. And I started thinking, every time we have a power outage in town, there are 2 things that I worry about. The senior center, like what are the seniors going to do? Like if they don't have heat, or if it's in the middle of the summer, what are we going to do if they don't have air conditioning? And I know we've got the cooling center, and typically Jerry works with Jeff Simon, but I'd like to have our own. We have total control of this. We don't have to ask anybody permission. We can do it. And I'd also like the seniors to be able to still have services, and people to still be able to go to the library when we have power. Now, look, I'm an eternal optimist, and I hope that we don't have power outages that last several days, but these weather events that keep happening, it's happening more and more frequently, or maybe I'm just becoming more aware of it because I'm home and it's COVID, I don't know. But it seems like it's happening more and more often. So I got thinking, the senior center library, I'd really like to have a backup generator, and I'd really like to see the transfer station, because if you lose power, what's the first thing you do? Got to clean out that refrigerator. Whoops, can't bring it down to the transfer station because they don't have electricity. So I passed it by Dennis. He said, I have no problem if you guys want to run with that. He said he'd talk to his board about it. And I talked to Lisa about it. Now, I know we're not in a year where we're flush with cash, so I'm not just willy-nilly suggesting this. We believe we can get ARPA funds for this because it's an infrastructure cost, and we'd word the article accordingly to say that only to the extent that this is paid for with ARPA funds would we do it. But I feel like we've got nothing to lose, and a lot to gain. So that's that. And then, again, now this, I did suggest this before I heard Todd's very bleak, outlook for this year. And maybe this isn't the year for it, but we do need to talk at some point about getting a facilities director who's going to oversee the maintenance of the town-owned property. We know we handle this in a very inconsistent way. And we don't always fund properly, and we don't have a lot of, we don't do a lot of planning and foresight on our buildings and on our properties. And it shows sometimes. And I'd really like to have somebody who's solely responsible for working with the Camp Kawani guys, the Parks and Fields guys, the, you name it, the town, town hall guys, and has a line of sight, like, here's the big picture of all of the things that need to be fixed, here's the priorities, I can do this, I can ask the highway guys to do this, I can work, that type of thing. I can ask Charlie Baker, who's been amazing, to do this. But again, we may want to table that just given the current fiscal state that we're in. The next one, and the last one that I had was actually by the Economic Development Committee. We got into a discussion last week where we were talking about the needs of Main Street and the enormous amount of work that needs to be done there. And frankly, Tony is hitting it out of the ballpark already and is amazing, as is Lisa. And they're looking for grants and they're working actively on grants, but we are way behind all of our peers in surrounding towns on the amount of grant money that we're getting. We've got well-intentioned people, Jerry, Chief Mix, you name it, all these guys individually going after grants, and that's awesome. And we've got Tony and Lisa's gone after, and we're like a green community. We've got the foundation right now to be eligible for a ton of grants, but we don't have one person who's working on it. And again, you might say, well, this would not be the year, Laura, fiscally we can't handle it. However, I've asked Lisa to do some work, which it's not really quite ready for prime time because we just discussed it last week, to make a case for how much money would a person dedicated to bringing in grants bring in versus what their salary is. And my gut is, and I'm pretty sure it will be proven out by what Lisa's able to find, that they're going to pay for themselves more than, several times over. The Economic Development Committee felt that this was a very important thing to get because we need grant money to do things on Main Street. We're simply not going to be able to fund it with town money. We're just not. And everybody knows it's a blight. We know things need to be done, but we don't have the money to do it. And now we've got the talent. We've got Tony, and we've got Lisa. We've got people that, we've got a full-time building inspector. We've got the resources in town hall. If we can get the grants, we're going to be able to move that needle forward. We've also got several developers who are interested in it. Now you've got the MBTA communities that just passed, which I'm sure you're all aware of, and potentially looking at a 40R district down there, which is very compatible with the MBTA. All of this requires work, and it's going to require money, and it's money we don't have. So that's my pitch for the grant writer. And again, I'd wait to really have a discussion until Lisa's got her facts. So those are my articles.
Okay, great, thank you. You wanna go?
Well, I'm sorry, I just thought we were supposed to introduce articles
Yeah.
for the warrant. Laura gave us a great explanation on the one she introduced. So when we move on from this later on, whether we, I guess there would become a time that we would either support these or not support them. And we'll discuss that later.
Yeah.
So Laura's made her pitch for all of hers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not my whole pitch. That's my just
Well,
initial introduction.
Right, well, I mean, Laura, if we discussed every one that you mentioned, and you did a great job, and I couldn't add to it. I was trying to think when I saw yours, I couldn't add to it. But we have a generator at Town Hall that still needs a fence in front of it because it's an eyesore every time we drive by it. That's a separate issue. But the Board of Health, we have no jurisdiction over anything they do. I could not and would not support a generator for the transfer station.
Well, we can refer it to them.
Only because, it's not in our jurisdiction, yet I couldn't support it if we had to vote yes or no for it. And that was just, one of the two quick things. I love the idea of a grant writer, and obviously that person's gonna bring in more money, but it only reduces what those grants are used for. The salary would still have to come out of the town budget. And I get that, and it makes so much sense. If a grant writer brought in $500,000 every year, and it's $120,000, on, you know, for salaries on an expense line, no matter what they bring in, that 120,000 is still gonna be there on the expense line. But we can wait
Yeah,
until.
we can have that debate
Yeah, until
later
we-
on, and maybe.
Sorry, I was reading off my thing, and that Jim's right, you did say just talk about the thing, so I'm sorry. I
No,
went off the-
that's fine that you want to do like an
Yeah.
introduction to it. Mr. Weeks,
I was just gonna say, I think you might have just said it though. Is this like because you said last time that you wanted this round to be different, where you wanted people that are proposing things to just talk about it?
Yep.
So it's not gonna be necessarily a question and answer thing.
No,
It's
no,
just
this
a
is
proposal thing?
Yep, this is just an introduction, so this way that we can have our office kind of work and try to get these things prepared.
Yeah.
So that way we can have a thorough discussion on it, you know, that way you can see the language of exactly what we're talking about. You know,
Okay.
there's some ideas that we have, but they need to be fleshed out a little bit more, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that way we can have a discussion on whether is it 2 people on a board, you know, on
Right.
per board
Yeah.
or whatever.
So when we go down and we get that graph, that's when we're gonna start talking, because I got thoughts on this too. I just don't
Yeah.
wanna lose that to Jim's point.
Yeah,
So,
nope, I
okay.
think tonight's just a
Perfect.
high level introduction for everything, so that way,
Perfect.
Ms. Green has her marching orders to kind of get her office, ready.
And wasn't this a case, Mr. Chair, where one of the last town meetings, I don't know if it was the last one or the one prior to that, people were like, wait a minute, where the heck did this article come?
Right.
We never had discussed, like, we all submitted, but we never
Right,
talked
and
about
this
who
is-
was
this is what
submitting
I'm
them.
try- Yeah, this is what I'm trying to prevent, is I want a lot of communication, so everyone's on the same board.
sense.
So that way, you know, if FinCom's having a discussion on whatever article it is, they can pull it up and say, they discussed it at this meeting specifically.
Yeah, context is everything. You
Right.
wanna have context, not just something that
So-
pops up on a line somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep, makes sense.
Any other introductions?
I just have one, just the meals tax one.
Okay.
We did back in the
So the
fall.
meals tax?
Yeah.
So that'd be another good thing to put in there. Any other things on this side? No? So one thing that, I know that we had discussed, in the fall, with, a couple of people was they wanted to change the name of Selectmen to Select Board. And I said that I'd bring it back, this spring, just like marijuana. I know that the special town meeting in the fall was just to move money around. So this one, I just wanted to make sure that we follow up on our promises, Select Board. And then, you know, maybe we can piggyback off the idea of, a grant writer to also give more support in our office. I really want to
Yes.
make sure that we have another person in our office, because 2 people can't do it alone.
I'm sorry, so here I am explaining, even though I said I wouldn't explain anymore, but, it's a grant writer / procurement officer.
Okay, perfect.
So it's a combination, so that would lift that, and it's a symbiotic relationship there, because if you think about it, somebody who's into the grants is gonna understand the procurement laws, and that will lift some stuff off of Lisa, so, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But to the select board thing, or select person? What do we
Select board,
call it?
select person,
Okay.
yeah.
I think the timeliness of that is pretty good, right? Because we're gonna be redoing the bylaws, so
Exactly.
just tuck it
Yeah.
right in there and do flow-through changes. I know I'm oversimplifying, but, yeah.
We're working on that.
Perfect. I know there was something else that I may have left in our folder for town meeting. So I might have to do an introduction at another time, but I know there's been an occasion when I'll be sitting in Miss Green's office going, oh, put this in the folder. There's something, you know what I mean? So I'm sure she'll open up the note and see all my sticky notes of whatever it is. So, but at least we have an idea of what we'd like to discuss, in the coming weeks. I might call for an extra meeting one night in the month of March, so that way we can kind of do exactly what Mr. Weeks had said, is kind of go through each article, so that way we're all communicating. So, with that being said, I'm moving on to vote to approve Hanson Little League Baseball Annual Opening Day Parade for Saturday, April 9th, 2022, from Town Hall to Botieri Baseball Complex.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 5-0.
So exciting.
And then I'm looking for a motion to vote to accept 2 donations of $25, $50 in total, made to the Senior Center in memory of a longtime volunteer, Teresa O'Brien.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 5-0. We have no old business. 1-day liquor licenses, I'm looking for a motion to approve as printed on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved, seconded, all in favor? 5-0. And I'm looking for a motion to approve open session meeting minutes.
I so moved, but I have one little tweak, which I'm now, of course, not gonna be able to find. But it was about the TMS meeting, Lucia. I don't know if you wrote the minutes, but I was assuming you did on this one. But in the discussion with them, sort of ends much more softly than my recollection was, so I went back and listened to the tape. And really, we basically said, you need to do more, TMS. You dropped the ball and did not do what we thought you were gonna do. And Lisa had the to-do to go back and take a look at the contract and then to have a conversation. That's what I would like the minutes to reflect, but it's a little softer than that in there.
This is for January 25th, right?
Yes.
January
Thank you.
25th? Okay, we'll go back and, actually, our minutes clerk generated these minutes, so.
All right, sorry, Lucia, for calling you out. I wasn't really calling you out, I was just tweaking.
We'll get these corrected.
All right, thank you.
All right, so with that being said, look for a
Second.
motion to approve with amendments.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Hold on.
Only because December 28th, there was only 3 of us. That was a virtual meeting that you, Laura, and I did. I don't know if we want to vote these separately.
All right, we can vote them separately. Yep, so I'm looking for a motion to approve, and thank you very much, Mr. Hickey. I'm looking for a motion to approve January 25th with amendments, as Ms. Kemet had mentioned.
So moved.
Moved,
Second?
seconded, all in favor?
No, you have the dates mixed up.
Abstain.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
We're gonna approve the minutes from January 25th, all 5 of us.
Correct.
With that.
With that tweak.
Yeah.
With that tweak, yeah?
Yeah. So it's all 5 of us voting.
Right.
Yeah.
Only 3 of us
Yeah.
voted.
I think people got confused about what we were
I thought you
doing.
were talking about the
I
28th.
abstained.
Why? Oh, I'm sorry, you don't have to answer that. That was a dumb thing to say.
No, Kenny was
I
absent
thought,
that time.
I thought you.
Oh, you were
voted with it.
absent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When was the last time you were here?
Do you go to Maine to get to the Cape?
Yeah.
All right.
So, all right, so just to clarify.
Redo.
We're gonna
Let's
redo
do it
this.
all again.
We're gonna redo this all again. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes for Tuesday, January 25th, 2022, with Ms. Kemet's amendments to the minutes, and Mr. Mitchell was absent for that day.
One more time with failing, so moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 401. All right, and then for Tuesday, December 28th, 2021, it was a virtual meeting with just Mr. Hickey and Ms. Kemet and myself in attendance. I'm looking for a motion
I like what Laura said, with emotion. So moved,
with a feeling.
with feeling.
One more time with failing.
Moved and
Second.
seconded. All right, all in favor? 302. All right. With that being said, town administrators report.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So one of the first items that I'd like to talk about is just noting the snow and ice fund has been depleted. So I've done up the memo as the accountant requested, just authorizing the highway department to deficit spend for snow and ice. If not, then the snow we'd have coming on Friday would not be moved off the street. So I've taken care of that. Just want to give a little update on green communities. So, with a heavy heart, I have to report that due to supply issues, we were not able to complete the water department LED lighting installation by February 11th. We missed it basically by 3 days. So what that does is it makes us ineligible for the spring round of the green communities. However, it gives us time to really prepare for the fall round. And we want to gather some auditing information and really in-depth information on the HVAC systems for town hall and library and COA. And this will give us that time. Whereas if we were going for the spring, we literally would have a month to kind of gather all this information. And I think it would not be, it just wouldn't be complete work. It would be You know, we did it in a rush, and I'd rather take the time and look at these projects and really get what we can get out of green communities and apply in the fall. So we gave it our all. But unfortunately, the supply chain,
Ms. Green, could you send a memo to Chairwoman Mary Ann Damasio with that information?
I will,
Thank you.
yes.
And, excuse me, but I'm sure you've already done this or thought about it. There's no exception. We haven't been able to appeal to ask if there's any, have we contacted our state representative to see if they might be able to help us with that?
Well, I contacted our Green Communities representative, Lisa Sullivan, and she said a lot of communities are in the same boat. We were not the only ones that didn't make it because of that reason, because of the supply
I just find it hard to believe that they wouldn't have any kind of wiggle room, like a month or something, but, okay, I mean, so you feel as though we've exhausted the avenues for
We have. Green
potentially-
Communities,
okay.
they're pretty strict with it, and where she said a lot of communities were in the same boat, it sounds like a lot of communities reached out and said, hey, can you give us like a couple more days? So,
Well, the nice part is, it's not like it's in the past. Like, in the past, it was one shot for a whole fiscal year.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas in the fall, we'll be able to,
Yeah.
right, we
from-
can begin working with the vendor to do some auditing of the energy systems of the buildings and really put together a really comprehensive report, because I don't know if that's been done. And the vendors who work with Green Communities come out and they do this at no charge, so they can get us ready for the next round for the Green Communities.
And then the other important aspect, as I serve on the Energy Committee, one thing that we have done is as this board knows, we converted the streetlights from high-pressure sodium streetlights to LEDs. So that's going to save us about $15,000 annually, but also we're going to receive a rebate from National Grid for doing that. And that money, we've been working with the town accountant to be able to put that into green communities. So that way we can throw money at these projects in the future, because HVAC with green communities, they don't want to just be the AC repair division. They want to see real commitment. So we're able to take some of those funds, hopefully if the rebate's done by then, to put towards it. So it might be a blessing in disguise. So, yeah, with that being said, I'm good.
COVID cases, just want to give an update on the COVID cases. As of today, there are 26 active cases, and that's based on the PCR tests. This is not based on the home self-tests, but significant drop in COVID cases over the last couple of weeks. So we're moving in a very good direction. And last but not least, Lucy and I attended a Zoom training meeting with the ABCC. They had implemented a new e-portal for submission of license renewals, liquor license renewals. And the training was very good because it gave us insight on new licenses and how to work through issues with license renewals or new licenses. We hadn't had any training like that before, so we will be ready with the next licensing renewals on how to submit everything online and where to go for resources. So it was a very good training that we attended.
Ms. Kemet?
Lisa, I'm wondering if we could get some intel from our veterans agent on what type of preparations he might be thinking about. I know it sounds crazy to be thinking about that right now, but Ernie and some of the guys have been asking what the plans are and contacting me, and we haven't heard from Tim, nor would we normally hear from him too early, like this is probably mid-March, maybe he might be telling us, but I was just wondering if we could kind of cue that up. Did you already know that?
I have answers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I actually spoke to Tim White today, and yes, Ernie and George. Tim is going on vacation, and when he comes back, March 14th, he is going to get going on it, and with everything that's happened over the past 2 years, not having a parade, just a ceremony, he is very excited about having a parade this year. And
Okay, so he is planning on bringing it back.
oh, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, and I would say bigger than before, not like way before, but where we've missed it the last 2 years. And I've
This year we
actually,
have somewhere we can park, because we know somebody who lives right nearby.
yeah,
Yep, so.
Driveway.
Yep,
yeah.
You're all set.
yep.
I want to be at the end. But, yeah, and, you know, I was talking to George and Ernie about it, and they're excited, along with Ron. These are guys that are at the senior center every Wednesday. And, yeah, it's gonna be better than it has in the recent past, so.
Well, I think the guys will be happy to, and gals will be happy to hear that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And then I just had one other thing, Lisa. I know Lincoln had reached out to, I'm not really sure who was copied, to be honest with you, on the email. It was, maybe you were, and I think you, and I think Chairman Kowalski and Randy Lamatina, about a joint Board of Selectmen meeting, which we talked about at our last meeting briefly, with Superintendent Simonek and whoever he would want to bring, whether it was Chris Howard or George Farrow, or both of them, to have our questions answered about whatever questions we might have about
Sure,
the school.
I'll butt in real quick on that one. So there was an email that went out about saying, hey, does Whitman and Hanson want to get together to discuss the school budget? At first I said, yeah, why not? But then as I talked to Chairman Howard from the schools, he goes, why didn't you just show up to our town, or our open meeting and to ask your questions there? So why are we having a meeting just to have a meeting when you guys could have came to our meeting? And he's not saying that, you know, to be rude or anything like that, but it just was kind of like, well, what is the point of the meeting?
Well, so, I mean, I can't speak for others, but historically, that was not the way that the school budget was presented. It wasn't a show up at our meeting and you can ask questions like one of the other, you know, attendees. It was Ruth would come with her business manager to the meeting, and the Board of Selectmen, who have to advocate for the budget and have to balance the budget with all of our many competing needs, would have the opportunity firsthand to have a conversation. So I think that's what it was, is to bring it back to the way that it used to be, where it was collaborative, collegial, smaller, not, not like the whole school committee, the whole, like the ring circus. It was just the Board of Selectmen saying, okay, can you help us understand full day kindergarten? Where's that, that type of thing, or whatever Todd might have. I mean, Todd probably has more questions than I would have at this point. And Stanbrook, I guess, would probably be part of the mix. Just that type of thing. Like, I don't understand why it would be so upsetting to anybody, or why they would be like, why didn't you come to our meeting? Because I think where Lincoln was coming from was thinking, the towns need to work together. We're funding a regional school budget. We should be communicating with each other about where we're at financially. And then we need to be communicating with the school. So the most expeditious way to do that would be to have all three parties in the same room. But we didn't have that, because, a couple of people went to the school committee meeting, but, they get into a lot more than honestly our board really needs to know. I don't need to necessarily know how the sausage is made. I need to know what you're asking for. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's my long-winded.
So I guess realistically was, if the board wants to have a joint meeting, we can definitely set it up. But it just was kind of, what is the point of this meeting? And if it is to review the budget and see what the ask is, it's like, I get the point of, hey, it's on YouTube, you can watch what the ask is. But it's up to you guys if you guys want to set up a joint meeting or not.
Well, can I just, for instance, and I think that's I'm gonna be, not my stereotypical self-expressing an opinion. I'm going to reserve. But what I would say is that I think that other departments come and make a pitch to us. That's how every other department, if Jerry needs, new fire truck, he comes and makes a pitch to us. if mixed needs,
Not me personally.
yeah, yeah. Yes, thank you, Jerry, and thank you for clarifying that.
Chief Thompson, yeah.
If,
Way to go,
yes,
Chief.
Chief Thompson, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be disrespectful. And, you know, similarly, if Chief Mix needs something, if anybody needs something, they're coming to the board because we are 1/5 of, each one of us is 1/5 of the CEO here. They're coming and making a pitch for why their need should be prioritized over other competing needs that we've got.
But they don't come in every year going, this is my budget for the year
Well,
necessarily,
they do
right?
have that conversation with Todd,
Yeah, but they have
and
the
then Todd
conversation with
brings it
Todd.
to us.
Right.
And we don't have, that doesn't happen with this, you know, with the schools, so this is, I just think I just feel like something has really jumped the track here, where the communication channels, and I'm not pointing fingers, I don't know how it happened, but I know that it's happened. There is not a collaborative, open conversation happening, it's we need this, and we met, you can watch the meetings on YouTube. We have to be advocates. We're the ones who, if there's an override or if we have to cut things from the budget, it's us that need to do it. I think the least that we could ask for, and I really don't think it's an overreach at all, is to have an explanation for why the budget is what it is. But again,
If the
you know,
board, what I'm saying, if the board would like it, I don't mind saying, let's go ahead and set it up. I'm just saying that's the kind of the feedback that I had received, that's all.
So I would say half of what Laura's saying, I think maybe have Jeff and his business agent come in and talk to us. I don't know that we need a joint meeting, but they certainly, Laura's right, Ruth used to come in here with Bob sitting here and they would go over stuff, you know, it might have been before your time, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, you know.
Okay.
And I was just gonna say, I can remember, watching the meetings or coming to the meetings when Ruth would come, but I mean, Kenny, you're the longest sitting, so did Ruth come with Bob while you were sitting behind this table?
Yes. I recall,
So
yeah.
somewhere within, I don't remember in 2017, and they may have, but I don't ever remember a joint meeting.
no, we've never had one. I think Lincoln was just saying, we're gonna have the same questions you've got, why don't we just all get together? I don't care if it's joint or not, but, you know.
And that could be exactly right. I mean, with 10 selectmen looking out what's, you know, best for their towns and for the students, that we, in one meeting, you know, which maybe could save time, but somewhere along the way, it gets switched around.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes sense. I mean, I can see, you know, Chris's point. I also talked to Chris about it. And they did do it, but that's not the way it used to be done. So maybe we should get back to those things and those values that we had before. You know, I don't want to sit behind here and saying that, you know, that we're on a pedestal, but you're exactly right when you say, you know, chief would come to us or any other department head and say this is what they're looking for, and we either try to figure it out or, you know, at least we come to some conclusion. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to find out what the school budget is from Todd. And, you know, we certainly do enough work for the town that, for some of us, making the school committee meeting would be tough. If it was 3 PM, it'd be perfect for me, but, you know, I mean, yeah, I'm up
Okay,
for,
so it sounds like you guys would like to have the meeting, regardless.
at least just try it this time and see
Yeah.
what happens. What's it gonna hurt?
All right, great. So, Ms. Green, do you mind just reaching back out? I think they were saying March 8th?
Lincoln proposed March 8th for a meeting, and he proposed it via Zoom
Okay, so,
at 6 o'clock.
perfect.
Okay,
All right, so I think that'd be great if we can move forward and just set up the Zoom and,
And we should come up with some type of agenda before this meeting, you know, the
Yeah.
topics, what are we
Yeah.
gonna be, so it's just not a free-for-all and we're there for 4 hours.
right, perfect.
So, can I just make a comment?
Mr. Muisi?
As somebody who supports the schools, I think it's important that Whitman and Hanson at the Board of Selectmen level would come together and really but really go in with a fine tooth comb and teamwork, work over the school budget. I think for optics sake for both towns, because I've watched both town meetings, because I'm that lame, but, each town has a concern for the school system and the budget that they have, because obviously it's a big budget. So to see both town boards of selectmen come together and actually work through that, it shows, especially over the last 2 years when we've had all the issues with Whitman, good teamwork. So that's just my opinion.
Nope, and that's appreciated. So, all right, so with that being said, we'll go for that. So, any other questions for the town administrator for town administrator report? So with that being said, we have a couple people here in the audience, and I was wondering, I'm kind of looking at this end of the table, because that's where the knowledge will sit. Is it possible to kind of jump into wage and personnel and then come back into executive session? Just to get people in and out?
Yeah, you can move things on the agenda. No
So,
problem.
because it's just 2 different meetings, that's all. I just wanted to,
Oh, yeah, so just recess this meeting, I see, your wage and personnel board. Recess this meeting to return following wage and personnel meeting. So open up wage and personnel and then go from there and close that up.
is that okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to recess into wage and personnel.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor? 5-0. All right, Mr. Weeks,
Thank you. All right, so we are going to call to order the Wage and Personnel Board, Hanson Town Hall Selectmen Meeting Room, Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. We were shooting for 7:30 PM, and it looks like we're almost made it. Looks like 7:47. So item 1, call to order. Item 2, new business, discuss and vote on proposed job descriptions for the facilities manager, events coordinator, and caretaker for Camp Kawani. Ms. Green, do I want to pass this up to you, or should we go to the chairman who happens to be in the audience?
Yes, well, these job descriptions were submitted to us through the Recreation Commission, and they're looking for wage and personnel to just approve these as well, so that they can update. Mr. Melisi, are you going to be putting this part of the policies and procedures, these new job descriptions?
I'm sorry.
Or are you just looking for the wage and personnel just to approve these new job descriptions?
I'm looking for the wage and personnel to approve these new job descriptions so we can go and start the process of getting these positions on board. I know the facilities manager position that's here is a town facilities manager.
Would you mind just coming up to the podium again? Yeah, same rules apply with the microphones. It's a very, Mr. Melisi.
I feel like I've been here before.
I know, right? Deja vu.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you. So the facilities manager position, is currently a town of Hanson facilities manager position. We'd like to, instead of making a new facilities manager specifically for Camp Kawani, we'd like to adjust the facilities manager position that's in the town specifically for Camp Kawani, since we do not have currently a facilities manager position there. We are in desperate need of a facilities manager. It kind of goes with the organizational changes that we're trying to make up at the camp, with having, a couple other positions there as well. Facilities manager will go kind of head-to-head with the event coordinator and the head caretaker, so.
And my understanding is that these job descriptions are supposed to be designed to be a little bit more specific to the tasks that are being done.
Exactly, yeah, the old job descriptions were very, I'll say bland. They were kind of full of everything there. These are more specific to what they'll actually be doing in the job descriptions and kind of the roles and responsibilities. The last one's kind of said, caretakers would have to, weed whack and mow the lawn. Like, we're not really looking for that in the job description. It's kind of in the landscaping section. So we're trying to make it a little bit more official of a job description so we can get, qualified people, so.
Yes.
So one thing that I would like to see added to all the job descriptions, the event caretaker, the event coordinator, and this is just other duties as assigned.
Other duties as assigned?
Just so that way you have that open-ended thing, so that's not in my job description.
Okay.
Any other questions or thoughts? Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, this doesn't mean that we're necessarily funding these or.
Correct.
We're just approving the job descriptions.
Yes.
The rest of that is handled separately with.
Yep, that's correct. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, these would come out of the same budget that we currently take our salaries out of, so. They don't change that.
Good to go. So any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other last minute thoughts? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. 5-0.
That was the easiest time I've ever done.
Right, these look great, by the way. They really do.
Great job.
So yeah, Audrey and Sheila did, they did these and they did a great job. So, you know, I'm just here taking the credit for it.
Thank you very much. And then we have call firefighters' wage and personnel increase to $50 per hour. Ms. Green?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we have a request from our fire chief. I'm sorry. Oh, sure.
Yes, please.
He is looking to increase call firefighters, an hourly rate, and Chief Thompson will take it from here.
Yeah, so basically, we haven't updated these in a while. Just a little background. Our call firefighters, we're one of the few communities around that still have actual call firefighters. I mean, you have Carver that has an all-call department, but around here, there's just a few, Halifax, Pembroke, and so a lot of times we hire from that list. And we just hired somebody from that call firefighter department as a full-time firefighter. But we also have some members that are just call firefighters. We actually have one that's been on longer than me. He's been there since '86, and he's a call firefighter. So we do have some that are just going to do that. And we were looking at different ways to compensate them and looked at some other towns or benefits. And so what I did is I put an email out to the surrounding towns, and I provided you with the rates that I received back from those people, from those surrounding towns, so Carver, Halifax, Hanover, Pembroke, and West Bridgewater. And those are all the averages that they have, and on the bottom it has the average. And then I provided you with current call firefighter pay rates, and then what I propose. And so what I want to do is increase them to be comparable with the other towns. And then what I did is we put in some steps for longevity, so 10 years would be 2%. 15 years would be 2%, 20 years, 2%. So it's just a way to reward the members that have been there for a long time. This would not require any increase in funding for my call firefighter line. Can do this within the amount that I request.
Okay.
So I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Any questions?
Chief, the only question I have is, I thought the front of this said up to $50.
I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
Call firefighters' wage and personnel increase to $50 per hour? Okay.
Yeah, so what would the official ask be?
So if you look at, did you guys get a copy?
Yeah.
So you'll see so right now, basically a call firefighter gets from between 16 to 18, and after 3 years, a call firefighter will get 17 to 19, and a call lieutenant is from 17 to 20. So I propose that we're gonna have some firefighters, we had some leave, so we're down to about 8 full call firefighters. So we have some we have some call firefighters in training, so that would be less money. Then a probationary firefighter would be $18 an hour. And so basically what I'm looking to change is the call firefighter would go from 19 to 22, and the call fire lieutenant would go from 20 to 24, and then obviously any longevity. So that gentleman who's been on for over 25, like almost 25 years would be the $24 plus the increases. That brings that individual who's a call lieutenant just under what a full-time minimum step firefighter would make. Because that's how our chain of command goes. It goes deputy, lieutenant firefighter, then call lieutenant, then call firefighter.
So, for the sake of procedure, can we just have it reflect in the minutes that this agenda item for $50 has to be reconciled through whatever motion we're gonna make, if it gets accepted? So we don't inadvertently raise it to $50 an hour?
Mm-hmm.
So we can make an amendment to that to, for call firefighters' wage and personnel increase from 19 through $24 per hour.
Yeah. You don't have to amend your agenda, you just have to make sure your motion is clear and reference the appropriate paperwork that the chief provided.
Yeah.
So I make a motion to approve the rates as proposed in the packet provided by Chief Thompson.
Second.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right, see none. All those in favor? All right, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
All righty, and then we have item 3, approve meeting minutes, January 25th, 2022.
Mr. Mitchell was absent.
All right.
Just so we don't end up doing this again.
Not saying a word.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for January 25th.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, 4-0 abstaining? One abstaining.
Thank you.
All right, and then that looks like it, so I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, 5-0. Meeting adjourned.
Back into the Board of Selectmen's meeting.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I am looking for a motion to adjourn from open session to executive session to discuss with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if any open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares, to wit, clerical union, litigation update, and town administrator.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, roll call vote, Mr. Weeks?
Aye.
Ms. Kennett? Aye. Myself, aye, Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
And Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
All right, we are now in executive session.